you're a person who cares a lot about you being entertaining, then this video may not be for you, right? If you're an influencer of some sort, if you look at yourself as an influencer, then yeah, this is not for you. Okay, just get out. Now, that in the way, if you're someone who's trying to build a personal brand, someone who's trying to give value to other people and build yourself your credibility, then listen up, because this will help you, or whatever I'll be discussing will help you better understand how you should go day in, day out when you start creating content and when you start building your personal brand. So, that being said, I do have a presentation here, and let's jump right to it. So first things first, if you associate views with value, then you're just like most founders and creators right now, wherein they think that that's reputation and that's credibility, wherein in truth is not the case. Views will not equal to trust. I want you to keep that in your mind. Views does not equal to trust. That's not the case, right? You're gonna be very noisy, or you're just gonna add noise to what already is a noisy field or feed, right? So without structure, consistency fades and influence stagnates. So you might have questions, maybe in the lines, or even you might have questions, thoughts in the lines of, you're showing up daily, right? But it feels like no one is listening, right? Like you can have tons of views, but no clients. Again, the most important thing when you're trying to create a personal brand, which I profiled you guys already. So if you're trying to create a personal brand, then you have something in line with your personal brand that you want to perhaps sell. It could be a course, right? It could be a service, but essentially it's like you're selling a business, right? And you're the face of the business. And again, I can't stress enough how you should disassociate views and reputation or trust, because that is not the case, right? Because you could post, or another one is here. You post a win, and the likes roll in. Sounds good, but no clients. So why is that? Again, views doesn't equal to trust. So, and this might be you, where you've made the breakout post, you've gone completely viral, right? But it showed you're good, but not that you're the one for them. Hence, the most important thing when you're running a personal brand, and again associate to a business, to your business, is that it should generate you clients or should generate you cash, right? People could just watch you and watch you and watch you, and you still don't have a dime in your name. So I hope you put this into your coconuts, or you put this into your head, that views will never equal to trust, right? So let's move forward. Now next, funnels. I know you've heard a lot about funnels, where you have top of funnel, middle of funnel, and then bottom funnel. So top, middle, and bottom, right? So funnel tells a story about the buyer. What do I mean? Right? In a feed first world, you need a story that starts before the funnel begins. Again, there's so much noise. So you want to situate yourself and start creating content first in the top, where again, that you want to put them onto the funnel. How could you adjust them to the funnel? So let me paint this clearly, because a funnel maps a decision, right? The whole top, middle, and bottom funnel maps a decision, but they work under the presumption that the buyer already believes in you, which again will not always be the case, especially if you're starting, right? So how can you make them believe, right? So these are the things that we're trying to break your beliefs in, or we're trying to break your understanding and give you a better insight of structure, of a way to really go upon creating content. So Moving forward, again, you're seen, but that doesn't mean you're acknowledged, right? This is closely in line with the views does not equal to trust, right? Just because you have more views, they won't trust you. And just because they see you, that doesn't mean they've not acknowledged you, right? You're posting, you're showing up, and the calendar is full of content that you're in line to post. And the feed is well inactive. But you have to question yourself, is this post building belief? Is this idea tied to your identity? And is this content moving trust forward? And again, key word here, trust. Because here's the uncomfortable truth, right? Not everything you post earns belief. So most founders confuse presence with positioning. And trust me when I say this, because I used to be that guy who just was trying to put out more content, and positioning will come through that content, right? Not the case again. So gone through that, and whatever I'm teaching here is all of those mistakes that I've learned, and try to structure them in a way that I could feed it to you guys, where you guys don't have to do the same mistakes I did. So yeah, so that again, move forward. It's about clear signal over content volume, right? Because if you do so much volume, which again in truth is just noise. Going back to like one of my first things here, it's absolutely noise. All of that, just noise all over. You don't want to be part of all that noise, right? So don't care about those numbers, right? No matter how high the numbers are. Key takeaway: if there's no revenue or there's no money coming into the bank with proportion to your views, then there's no point. Because sorry, there you go. Again, there are a lot of people that I've seen in the space, like I've researched and my team has researched thoroughly, right? They make so much revenue, right? No profits, or in some case, they just have so much views, but really no profit coming into the table, or no revenue even, right? You don't want to be that guy. So let's move forward. Now, I want to set this where you see all these three, and I'm pretty sure if you're in the space or in the niche, you know these three people, but belief does not happen by accident. Please remember that. Because the brands that stick to your head, the founders you trust without hesitation, the ones that feel inevitable, because we got here Alex Ramosi, Iman Godsi, and Gary Vee. Three great brands in the field. They're not just consistent, and they're not just louder, they're structured. All three structured. They've built a rhythm that repeats the right messages, reinforces the right positioning, and rewards the right people. That's why they're so trustable. That's why when you see them, you know them. Because they have done this framework that I'm about to introduce. And again, I make these frameworks because I like structure and I like a clear vision of what I should be doing and how I should be doing it. So when I say I made my research and I really formulated, not really I have a whole team that backs me up on this. So when I say my whole team did the research, and again, this is months and days in, day out, right? Where we did the research and came up with a framework that we have seen patterns on, right? And actually, let's go into this. It's the ARCH framework, basically, where those three people, Alex Ramosi, Iman Godsi, Gary Vee, a perfect example of how they use this framework, the ARCH framework, where they capture attention, they capture resonance, credibility, and habituation, right? These are the founders that feel inevitable. They're not just good at content, they're operating with a rhythm. So let's dive into framework. Let's dive into the framework. So let's dive into the framework and see it step by step, or like see it in its actuality, right? So moving forward, attention. Attention isn't about going viral. Again, attention isn't about going viral. It's about earning that first pause, and the best brands don't fight for attention. They earn relevance on contact. So the moment you see Alex Ramosi, again, if you're acquainted in the space, the moment that you see Alex Ramosi, Iman Gadzhi, Gary Vee, you already know what they're about. And even on first contact, the moment you first saw them, the way they bring up themselves, the vibe that they have, and the way they portray, or the way they give information, you understand it's a part of that value, or that niche, that value niche, information niche, right? So these are the strong personal brands that tie to businesses, right? And they speak to you, right? They answer, this speaks my language, and I need to know more. Those are the things that comes to your head when they start talking. Not like, the thank you girl, not like fuck, the guy who just does that every time that when you have those videos where it's just so plain and basic, or like demure girl, like all these guys are entertainers. Again, they give their value comes in from entertainment, from you liking and commenting. That is where they gain value from. You, however, as I classified, or that we've already gone through, you give value, information, you build credibility through those aspects. So again, you should be grabbing attention in a sense of not going viral, but in a sense of earning that logical pause. So why do they want to see you? Again, and then there's a lot of this that goes by the hooks and everything, right? But also, it's just grabbing the right attention. You don't want mindless attention. You want the right attention, the right audience, right? So that's attention. So next, let me just zoom this out, is resonance. And resonance isn't about being personal. It's not enough to share your story. You have to tell it in a way that echoes with your audience, or in your audience. All right? Resonance happens when your values surface through the voice. Your journey mirrors theirs, and your honesty does not try to impress. Again, the most trusted brands aren't loud, they're emotionally positioned. And as you can see, I used a tuning fork, because tuning forks don't have to be loud. But when you ring them, ding, it's perfectly to find that perfect rhythm, that perfect resonance, right? So be like a tuning fork. Anyway, moving forward, credibility. Credibility isn't about status. It's not about status. It's about how you think, right? You don't earn credibility by shouting louder. That's not how you do credibility. You earn it by showing why it works and how you think, right? I want to say that yes, results matter. The clients, the outcomes, and even the case studies. Yes, they all matter. But what truly matters is the way you portray information, may it be visually, may it be like this in the framework, or just the way you provide clarity to your audience. And even some case, it's just raw conviction. In some case, right? But going deeper, you have to have clarity behind them. Because if not, we're going back to what I was saying a while ago. It's just another noise in that crowded feed, right? So what sets you apart isn't just what you've done. It's how you explain why it matters. The thinking behind it. If you make sense, you create videos, you create explanations. It may be short form, long form. Long form is better, by the way. But it could be any form of content. Hell, it could be even infographics, right? You can build credibility by sharing information the right way and just anything to help them bridge the gap. And that gap is knowledge, and that what builds credibility. Of course, there's beyond just client successes, beyond just outcomes and all that, because they also build credibility to you. But again, just rounding back for the people, especially who does not have that kind of level of, testimonials yet, totally fine. You can still build credibility in other ways. So, and like the moon, again, I like using images and I like using examples. So, like the moon, it makes no sound, yet it moves the tide. So yes, you don't have to be loud. You just have to make the proper content that will move other people. That is how you build credibility, right? And lastly, habituation. Habituation isn't about content volume, right? It's about the mental presence. People don't remember the loudest brands. They remember the one that feels like it's always been there. Again, the one that feels like it was always been there, right? Your audience isn't counting your posts, right? They're absorbing your very patterns. Habituation is a shift. Again, a shift from I saw your post to I think about you when I face this problem or the solution, right? You become the context, right? It could be a weekly ritual post that anchors your voice, a repeated phrase that becomes yours, a rhythm that carves its shape into their mind and keep into their mind, habituation, really. So this is how your content becomes context. And a perfect example is Hermosi or Alex 100M. 100M offers, 100M leads, 100M, how was the new one? The money models. So all 100M, see? 100M. And when you talk about productivity, first thing that comes into your mind, Ali Abdal, feels good productivity. Or maybe Second Brain with Tiago Forte, right? So all of these guys, and you might be saying, Sean, this is because they have books. You know what? Let's talk about Iman Gandhi. He has no books, but what did he coin? He coined contractor arbitrage. Sure. A fancy way, a sophisticated way of saying freelancing. So literally, anybody on the field, you could coin. You have to give context and make that context yours. Own the context. That's how you build a brand, right? You anchor all ARCH, right? So now that we know Arch, now let's dive into what Arch is not, right? So Arch is not another content system. Now that you know the whole framework, or at least I've introduced the whole framework, it's not a whole content system what most people deem it to be, or what most would seem it to be. Yeah. So, again, it's not your hook bank, it's not your carousel vault, nor is it about even more content, about having more content. That's not what Arch is about, right? It's about owning your emotional architecture, your mental positioning, and making presence predictable and not repetitive. That is what arch is, right? And I place this picture because do you see the people here? You know, they're in a marathon. Yeah, no shit, Sean. Yes, they're in a marathon. And look what they're wearing, right? Look at that. Exactly. They're wearing shoes. And if you use Arch as that type of content system or another content system, buddy, you are wearing flip flops to a marathon. What does that make you look like? Right, an idiot. So don't. So don't use Arch as another content system because it's not. So, and to reinforce, Arch is a framework of a loop. And to reinforce, the framework Arch is a loop, not a ladder. It's not that, okay, today, Monday, we're going to do A, attention. Okay, tomorrow, Tuesday, we're going to do R, resonance. And Wednesday, C, and maybe we could go back to A, and then, it's not a fucking ladder. Pardon my French. You don't climb from A, R, C, H, you cycle through them intentfully. You cycle through them intentfully, right? There could be weekly, monthly, seasonally, I don't care. But you just cycle through them until you get them all together, right? So it's like training your different muscles in rotation, right? Too much of one and your content essentially limps. So let's move forward and let's run Arch on Hormozy. Because again, I like using examples and I like putting frameworks and structure to evidences of people doing it already and what made them successful. So, and here's a perfect example. This is how Alex takes the attention. Every clip starts with a sharp and spiky punch. From the get-go, you know it's Hormozy, right? He doesn't waste your attention. He grabs it, right? Then art, he grounds it with personal struggles. He ties it with education and the experience, right? And to a lot of you who is scared of being vulnerable, look at it as not being vulnerable. Rather, it's just strategic reliability, right? And next, see his credibility. He gives you the breakdown, the visuals, the framework, the math, the strategy. This, my friend, this is how he earns the right to be followed and paid. Let's go back to the highlighter. And finally, habituation. He repeats this all relentlessly. Over time, he becomes predictable, familiar, and trusted. And look at him. Like, literally, guy with a tank top, buff, beard, with a bit of long hair. You know it's Hormozy. Yeah, you know what? Tank top, acquisition.com, a white tank top, and just buff. You would know it's Hormozy. Like, by the visual, you already know it's Hormozy. And, close your eyes. Again, if you've watched enough Hormozy, or like you've watched a couple of Hormozy, you close your eyes, you just hear someone talking. The way he talks, the tonality and all of that, habituation, right? And all of this, he's running Arch through every video. The way he grabs attention, the way he puts his experience, and the way you resonate through that experience, right? And then the way, whenever he does his videos, where he has a framework or structure, right? Or sometimes, he has visuals, or like dumbed down comparisons. right? Or dumb down comparisons. So all of this, he's running Arch day in, day out for every video. So literally, you know it's Alex. And that's how Arch should be. So moving forward. And lastly, my favorite, Arch isn't a strategy. It's a diagnostic tool. Most content frameworks tell you what to post. Okay, this is what you should do next, and then this, and then this. And that's not Arch. Arch is a framework that shows you why your presence isn't landing and how can you fix that. You don't need more hooks. You need signal that sticks. And you need to know what's missing and where. Because that exactly was my pain point. I didn't know what was missing and where was it missing. I looked at through all my content, made tons of research with the team until we finally found what it is. And we've made a framework to adjust to it. And it's not about just having more content, it's about more clarity, more pull, and eventually more proper presence. And it's like your coach. Arch is like your coach, right? It could be Steve Kerr with the Golden State Warriors, or my favorite coach, Kokoma with SKT, right? Well, right now SKT. He's done a couple of teams, but that's another discussion for another time. But essentially, Arch is your coach, right? It's a strategic coach for you. So, with that being said, let's put that down. That's it. If you have any comments, feedback, would love to hear it in the comment section down below. Now, if you're the type of person who likes frameworks, or if you've gotten this far, then probably you do like frameworks and visuals, then I'm all for it, right? So please do hit the sub, give it a like if it really helped you, and yeah, share this with your like-minded friends. And with that being said, thank you very much, and expect more.